Thanks, Fidel. Gohan supported his injured friend as they settled to the ground. I still have nightmares about Broly, and that was just self-defense. I don't know if I'd have been able to live with myself if I'd killed someone when I didn't have to. Even if he did deserve it. Well, in the end, I guess he just couldn't live with the knowledge that he'd been beaten. Shown mercy, even. At this, Fidel seemed to lose her strength and slumped against Gohan's shoulder. She mumbled. You're a good guy, Gohan. Never lose that. It was strange, Gohan realized. He was in a Super Saiyan 2 form, but able to think clearly. The anger wasn't gone. It wasn't full mastery of the form like he'd achieved with the first level. But it was diminished, bubbling quietly in the back of his mind, no longer overriding everything. Sound to his right brought him out of his daze, crumbling rock. Two figures smashed down through the ceiling, tumbling to the floor and leaving a sizable impact crater as they skidded along, finally coming to a halt. Gohan shielded his eyes as the dust settled. Zarbon? Indeed it was he. The reformed alien soldier was crouched atop the battered body of his mechanical opponent. Keiko was dented, scraped, burned all over, pieces of its metallic body twisted, melted and scored with jagged slashes. Beneath some of these could be seen organic body parts, flesh and blood. And this was in fact the secret of Keiko's surprising strength, a combination of cutting-edge cybernetic enhancements as a soldier, with a naturally high power level. Zarbon, though the victor, was in bad shape too. Even as he watched Zarbon deliver the finishing blow to his opponent's exposed biological face, Gohan noticed the burn marks covering most of Zarbon's left side, the lacerations adorning his body, and the bruises on his face. He stood up, stretching his muscles. Now that was a fight. I haven't fought like that for years. What about selling the androids? Are you kidding? Zarbon laughed. That doesn't count. I've never fought an opponent that I was a match for during that whole affair. There's a battle, and then there's stalling for time or getting smacked around by some unbeatable opponent. This, he indicated the downed cyborg, was a fight, my friend. He paused. What are you looking at me like that for? Oh, sorry, Gohan said, smiling. It's just, I was thinking. What you said is true. You were pretty outmatched, and more than the rest of us. You probably could have got off planet and survived somewhere other than Earth. But you stayed and tried to fight anyway. Yeah, well, Zarbon spluttered. Look, I've lived there for a good few years. I'm allowed to be a bit fond of the place. Don't try to make me a hero just because of something like that. Gohan grinned. Despite what he says, and what Bulma says, come to it, we'd have a guy like that on our side. He's got a good heart. Just took a bit of digging to bring it out. Hey, can you take care of Videl? He asked, letting Zarbon support her. Why? The older fighter asked. Something you've got to do. Gohan nodded. I don't know how long I can maintain the Super Saiyan 2 power. Might as well take down the other ruler here while I'm at my maximum. No messing around like we did with Turles. He's going down, and nobody else is getting hurt. What can you tell me about him? Zarbon accesses internally stored data, still relying on the session of deep sight he'd used on the news stations. His name is Lord Slug. He's pretty despotic by all accounts. He can't be worse than Turles. I'm afraid so. Zarbon noted Gohan's disbelieving look. Look, I'll try to explain. To Turles, his people were expendable, yes, but he still felt some attachment to them. They were his, and he'd at least try and keep most of them alive, even if only so he could use them for something later. Slug just doesn't care. He just sees himself as owning the land, and if there's anybody living there, they'd better stay out of his way. The people just try and lay low as much as possible. There's pretty much nothing in their lives than trying to survive from day to day. So, less of a ruler, more of, well, a pirate. Or just a thug. Right. Zarbon took off. I'll take her to the hospital. You finish up quick and meet me back here. Okay. Gohan lifted off, angling his flight towards the hole Zarbon had made entering the room and soaring out into the sky. Mind if I join you? Gohan looked to the right to see Kuriza gliding along next to him. The Saiyan nodded. Sure. I'm going to take down Lord Slug. That's the Namek ruling the other side of the planet. Bad? Worse than Turles, apparently. Wow. Huh. Kuriza fell silent. Do you think this is just natural? The way of the world? My father's deposed and we come back and we've got these guys running the place just like he would. Gohan shook his head. No. People. Most people are better than that. They tried, you know. They had a fair government. For a while. But Vegeta's little terrorist stunt gave people like Turles and Slug the chance to step in. So what do you hope to achieve? Kuriza asked. You take these guys down? How long before it happens again? It won't. People like this are cowards at heart. After today, they'll have something solid to fear. I'm going to end the Super Saiyan as a myth. And make it real. If you say so. It sounds dangerous, Gohan. What do you mean it vanished? Lord Slug demanded. He was over 6 feet in height, and well built even for a Namekian. He wore a yellow cloak over his dark fighting outfit, and a scar ran down the left side of his face, only partially concealed by his helmet. It's just gone, sir, the soldier said quietly, backing fearfully away from his capricious ruler. Turles' power level just dropped off the map, and another group just appeared, around the same time. One of them is literally off the charts! We can't measure it! Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Slug laughed. You scared me for a second. It's just a malfunction. Turles and his men couldn't have died that quickly. And people don't just pop into existence. Especially not with power levels we can't even measure with our heavy-duty sensors. They can detect my power level, can't they? Hell, they wouldn't even short out at old King Cold himself. There's no way anyone could be that. Comic book sound effects, while aesthetically pleasing, are rarely accurate in relation to the noise something actually makes in real life. However, the sound of Gohan and Kuriza breaking through the roof of Slug's armored bunker and decelerating from supersonic speeds to a dead stop in milliseconds, generating enough heat to partially melt the stone floor beneath their feet, was definitely a BLAM! The soldier, Angela, who had been reading the sensor reports, was the first to react. What the oh, shut up! Gohan punched him clean through the wall and into the next room. He didn't get up. Slug's eye twitched. Kill the bastard! Get both of them out of here! His 3 remaining soldiers in the room, Ziyun, Wings, and Menemacha, began to move to attack. Kuriza's image flickered, and the soldiers collapsed, giving out gasps of pain and surprise. You. Slug growled, clenching his fists. Just who the hell do you think you are? Coming in here and tearing things up like this? Don't you know who I am? You are addressing the great Lord Slug. Now show some respect, or prepare for oblivion! He paused. Wait a minute. You're... His eyes widened with the realization. Kuriza! The Lost Prince? A smile crossed the scheming Namekian's face. Yes, he'll be very helpful. Either as a powerful ally, or a valuable trophy. I might even let Blondie there escape with his life if you join me. What'll it be? Kuriza grinned. You're so used to calling the shots it doesn't even cross your mind that you're not in control of the situation anymore. What's that supposed to mean? You're not seriously trying to stage some kind of coup here. You're mad if you think you can challenge my power. I'm even stronger than your father was, boy. Well, that makes 2 of us then. Kuriza nodded to Gohan. 3, actually. Gohan, want to show him. Right. Gohan flared up his ki a little, powering up to over 50% of his maximum. Yeah! The stone walls cracked as shockwaves rolled out from the Half Saiyan's body. The power level sensor in the corner of the room crackled, stuttered, and finally exploded. Slug staggered back, in awe of Gohan's incredible power. What? Who are you? Are you a god? He whispered. Almost. I'm a Super Saiyan. No, it can't be true! Slug wailed. I never believed. Why me? Of all the injustice, why me? Injustice? Gohan seethed. You want to talk about injustice, you waste of oxygen! He grabbed Slug by the neck, flying back up through the roof and throwing the tyrant to the ground on the streets above. Look around you, Slug! The streets are empty. Why do you think that is? Why should I care? The Namek snapped. I don't concern myself with the masses. A higher being like you should understand that. It's because of you. Gohan trembled, trying to keep himself under control. They aren't leaving their homes anymore. They're afraid you'll kill them on sight for amusement. With reason, I assume. Slug snorted. You've sure got an overdeveloped conscience, haven't you? You think you're some kind of hero? You had me going there. You're no Super Saiyan, the bloodthirsty warrior of legend. This self-righteous kid? Give me a break. Yeah! He leapt up from the floor, launching himself at Gohan, but the child's hand shot out, catching his punch mid-swing with minimal effort. You know, that'd be slightly more intimidating if I hadn't heard the same from the other guy. Now, answer me one question. Did you think you could get away with this forever? Did you honestly think nobody would care? Why should they? It's not their problem. Well, it's about to be yours. Gohan raised one fist to shut Slug up, but Kuriza put a hand on his shoulder. Hey, Gohan, let me handle this one. You sure? Yeah. You go check how the others are doing. I'll clean up here. A few years back, my race were the oppressors and his were the heroes. I can't help seeing a bit of poetic justice here. I'll be fine. Keep your key sense sharp, and I'll show you the results of my training. Gohan nodded, powering down and taking off back towards Turles' half of the planet. Kuriza is kind of strange. Sometimes he talks like someone a lot older, and the next moment he's a kid again. Must run in the family, I guess. Kuriza turned back to Slug. Alright, let me make it plain to you what's happening. Your rule is done. You're through, and you're leaving. You don't have a choice in the matter. But I can beat you up first if it makes you feel better. Why, you? Slug leapt at Kuriza, the young prince blocking his first punch. I'll never surrender! If you say so. He winced as the shockwaves rolled through his body, shaking the ground beneath him. Let's go! The fighters vanished, racing up into the air as the battle began. Gohan maintained his course away from the fight, despite his misgivings. Kuriza must know what he's doing, but I can tell he's outmatched against Slug. He must have some kind of plan, or he wouldn't have been so confident. Wait. Ah, that's it. He could just about feel it at the edge of his senses, buried within Kuriza's energy signature. Clever. Wish you'd have told me about it. Ah well, no need to worry. He's got it won. Kuriza crashed to the ground, tumbling head over heels and melting a parked hovercar with his high speed, passing as he skidded to a halt. Well? Slug hovered a few feet away, tossing his helmet to the ground, revealing the antenna beneath and stretching his neck one way, then the next. Where's all that bravado from a minute ago? I think you said you were going to beat me up. But let me tell you, I wouldn't be here if some random group of self-righteous vigilantes could just barge in and depose me. I am Nemec's lost son. No fighter can match me! I guess his ego's interfering with his memory, Kuriza noted. He wasn't so confident when Gohan powered up. But then maybe he just assumes that I'm the stronger of the two. So, tell me, he said, rubbing a bruise on his face. What happened to the kind, peaceful Namekian race? Kind? Peaceful? Is that what they were like on Namek? The ruler shrugged. I wouldn't know. I don't remember the place. I was sent to another world in my infancy. I see. Just like Kami. They must have sent you both out to escape the cataclysm the elders spoke of. From what I've been able to gather, they sent away two children destined to become great warriors. Super Nameks, if you will. Apparently that power was supposed to have a corrupting influence on me. But I don't believe that. You might see it differently, but that's just a point of view. Slug cracked his knuckles. Now, I've lost a lot of soldiers today, so I'll give you one last chance to join me before I kill you. That explains a lot, actually. Kuriza realized, lost in thought, why the corrupting influence of Piccolo ever existed in Kami. He was a Super Namek too. And that must also be why they grew in power so much when they fused. Hey! Don't you ignore me! Slug growled, thrusting one arm forwards. It stretched out, extending unnaturally to close the distance to Kuriza, grabbing the young warrior and pulling him towards Slug. Oh, crap! Kuriza squeaked as a foot impacted with his face, knocking him flat on his back. Right. Fighting now, thinking later. He bounced to his feet, hopping from right to left. Okay then, prepare to be... Yelping, he jumped away as Slug fired narrow yellow energy beams from his eyes, chasing Kuriza away down the street. Putting on a burst of speed, he reappeared standing on top of a water tower on the roof of the building behind Slug. Hey! Don't interrupt me when I'm introducing my ultimate technique! Surely that's the perfect time to interrupt you, Slug reasoned. Quiet, you! I'm trying to do something cool over here! Kuriza's scrawny frame burst out into a bodybuilder's, armor plates sprouting over his head, chest, shoulders, lower legs, and forearms. Bony spikes and blades emerged from the armor, glistening in the light of the setting sun, as his eyes took on a red glow. Finally, an armored face mask slid across his mouth and nose, obscuring his mocking expression. "Well, how do you like me now?" Gah! Slug choked, recognizing the change from the file on Cooler. This form! Right. Pretty cool, don't you think? Proper key control made it a lot easier to accomplish, of course, as well as reducing the collateral damage and fireworks that usually accompanies my transformations. Though I don't transform very much anymore anyway. Another benefit of key awareness is being able to fully control my energy, my natural form, rendering the first three pretty much useless unless I suddenly develop a burning desire to bump my forehead on doorways. I'm doing it again. Fight time now. He shook his head, clearing his thoughts. Where was I? Oh, right. He looked up to see a gigantic Lord Slug barreling towards him, having taken the opportunity Kuriza's mental tangents provided to perform into his giant form, an ability seemingly shared by all evil Namekians for some reason. Avoiding the temptation to drift off on another tangent about why this might be, Kuriza instead leapt into the air to avoid Slug's massive fist, which instead pulverized half a mile of road. Spinning in midair, Kuriza delivered a roundhouse kick to Slug's face that knocked the monstrous tyrant flat on its back. Slug landed in the river, instantly flooding it as he displaced about as much water as a good-sized streamliner. Kuriza grinned, rolling his shoulders as he tried to get used to his bulked-up form. I already gave the speech to the other guy, so I'll just focus on kicking your ass, alright? That's it for Chapter 51. See you in Chapter 52 in just a few seconds. Lord Slug pulled himself shakily to his feet. No, I won't lose to this child! Spotting his target, he swung his head forwards, unleashing a wide energy beam that flattened half the street in front of him. The dust blew away to reveal a crater several meters deep, stretching back half a mile and carving right through a river. A tiny figure faded into view. Kuriza hovered at the front, arms crossed in front of his face, scorch marks dotting his body. Not bad, he decided, lowering his arms and smiling behind his mask. I could have seriously injured me if I wasn't ready. I guess I was wrong to let my guard down around you. Damn it! Slug made a grab for Kuriza, but the young warrior was already moving, easily evading the attempt. Kuriza wheeled around, kicking Slug in the side of the head and knocking him off balance, then following up with an uppercut to the chin that staggered the giant Namekian away. That's it! Slug threw his whole body forwards in a somewhat awkward lunging motion that would have caused Kuriza to break out into fits of giggles, if it weren't for the fact that movement had launched a massive key-enhanced shockwave that bore down on the frost demon like a tsunami, smashing him into the pavement. Sneering, Slug stomped up to Kuriza, lying somewhat dazed on the ground, and brought his foot down heavily, completely obscuring the smaller fighter from view. You're fast, little man, but I've got you now. In this form, my raw strength is unmatched in all the universe! What the? His eyes widened in disbelief, despite every available gigantic muscle in his body forcing it down. His foot was slowly rising from the ground. Kuriza was standing up straight, both arms straining against the enormous weight above his head. You really need to lose a few pounds. It's like lifting a good-sized country down here. Stay down, damn you! Slug stamped down again, but Kuriza pushed back with all his strength, muscles burning. Not a chance! With that, he gave one final effort, heaving Slug up into the air. Throwing out his key, the tyrant stopped in mid-flight, trembling with exertion. Kuriza slowly rose up to face him. This calls for a cliché. Hey, Lord, I've only got one thing to say to you. What? Slug snapped, before deciding on impulse that he didn't care, and making another swipe at Kuriza. His fist swung through an afterimage, and Kuriza appeared behind him, a fully charged ball of crackling energy hovering above his outstretched fingertip. He'd evidently picked up the trick of rapidly preparing the planet-wrecking death ball technique from his uncle. You're fired! Kuriza yelled, hurling the death ball straight into Slug's back. And you're sure he'll be alright? Zarbon asked. Gohan shielded his eyes from the flash of orange light that filled the sky back where Kuriza and Slug were fighting. That spike of ki, it was Kuriza's, not Slug's. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. It was broadcast on every channel, every station, every frequency. The message was wordless, almost silent, and therefore understandable in any language. Turles and Slug lay in a heap on the floor, one piled on top of the other, unmoving. The Super Saiyan stood with one foot on their backs, staring at the camera. He gave a brief smile, nodded to the camera, then left. The rest happened quite slowly, for a change, even the immediate loose ends taking several days to clear up. The Tree of Might was found shortly, now a smoking ruin. The effects were felt immediately, a planet-wide lightening of the spirit, a sense of optimism in the air, compounded by their unexpected salvation. Lord Slug was taken to a hospital, and, along with his and Turles' surviving henchmen, kept sedated until a sufficiently durable holding cell could be built, so that when the Nemean people were self-sufficient enough to form a government, they could officially put them on trial, which was mostly a symbolic gesture, a formal casting off of the old ways he represented. Turles' former subjects, without the influence of the Tree of Might, quickly set about organizing themselves, and within a matter of months the planet became the busy trading port it had once been. Those on Slug's half of the planet took a while longer to come out of their homes to begin normal life again, but eventually they all moved on. Nameia itself took on an air of mystique, becoming a tourist hotspot. Visit the Empire Museum, see the throne occupied by Frieza and Turles, venture underground and see the very spot where Turles died. The Super Saiyan himself once trod the ground you walk on. Everybody ready to leave? Zarbon asked. Yup! Kuriza's voice was somewhat muffled by the food in his mouth, currently halfway inside the fridge, scrounging for snacks. Yes, sir! Videl, leaning against the back wall of the pilot's cabin where Zarbon sat, gave a mock salute. She had a bandage around her leg, but appeared mostly recovered from her ordeal. Yeah, we're all good back here, Gohan called out. He'd been able to walk the streets largely unnoticed in his base form, the disguise completed by a change of clothes that seemed to fit in better with the urban style of the planet. He tossed something back and forth, from one hand to the other on his way to put it in cryostasis. A souvenir he'd taken from Nameia, potentially an object of great value. Alright then, we have liftoff. Zarbon slowly increased power to the thrusters, lifting off gently and adjusting the various settings the ship needed to run smoothly on its own, before flicking over to autopilot. Stretching, he pushed himself out of the seat and ambled over to Gohan's cabin. Hey! Hey! He opened the door, seeing Gohan scribbling down notes with one hand, typing something up with the other, and occasionally pausing to sketch something. Hey! Anybody home? Wait, what? Oh, hey. Gohan looked up, bleary-eyed. Sorry, it's just... I learned a lot about alien culture there, not to mention the political history of the last few years. It's going in the book. Isn't it about ki control, though? Zarbon asked. Well, yeah, but... Gohan sighed. There's a lot of stuff we know that most people don't. I was happy to let people just be oblivious. Ignorance is bliss and stuff, you know. He shrugged. But now they want to know. Might as well tell them everything. Time travel? Super Saiyans? Okay, not everything. As much as it's safe to make public. I don't want our families to be hounded by governments and religious fanatics. If I started writing about legendary alien prophecies, you know. And as for time travel, not only do I not know nearly enough about it to seriously discuss it, if people knew it was possible, if somebody figured it out, can you imagine the damage a selfish person with the time machine could do? Zarbon looked confused. And look, you think I'm dangerous? You think Frieza was dangerous? Compared to time travel in the wrong hands, I'm nothing. But you're giving the people the ability to turn their bodies into super weapons? You don't consider that dangerous, too? Gohan sighed. Look, this is going to sound really stupid, but imagine if everyone walked around with their eyes closed all the time, okay? Imagine nobody could see anything. Then I discovered that vision is a thing. I opened my eyes and used them, and suddenly I was so much better at just about everything than everybody else. It'd be selfish not to tell people about it. That's actually a pretty good analogy. Zarbon turned to leave. It explains that Hercule person anyway. How do you mean? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It was several minutes later that Zarbon somewhat sheepishly reappeared in the doorway. Sorry, that conversation made me forget why I came to see you in the first place. Basically, where do you want to go next? I think we've run out of tyrants for you to depose, so the next planet will probably be a bit less of an adventure. I wouldn't count on that, Gohan muttered. Life has a way of throwing adventures at you whenever you're least ready for them. Anyway, can I see a map or something? What's around this bit of space? He finished lamely. Yeah, Bulma uploaded a map of the galaxy to the ship's computer, and I helped her fill it in. Here we go. He tapped the console on Gohan's wall, bringing up the map. What'll be our heading, Captain? He joked. Gohan rolled his eyes. He's getting more human every day. Well, let me see. He examined the map closely for a few minutes. Planet-wide factories, trading posts, military bases, asteroid spaceports, backwards feudal worlds, crowded metropolises, desert planets, ice planets, jungle worlds. The choice was dizzying. Hey, he pointed out a system a few parsecs away. What about that one? It doesn't say anything about it. Oh, what's it called? Zarbon brought up the file. Alfheim. We've got no data at all aside from physical geography. All that's known is it's fairly Earth-like. Though be careful with anything flammable, there's high oxygen levels in the atmosphere. Only one expedition's ever been made there. And they didn't come back, did they? Good guess. One of them made one last transmission, rambling about ghosts. But after that, nothing. There don't seem to be any significant mineral deposits there, so it's just been left alone since then. Gohan nodded. Interesting. Zarbon sighed. You want to go there, don't you? Would you believe I do? Seriously! Why? You know why? I'm curious. Well, don't be. Whatever killed those explorers is... Look. If whatever it was strong enough to pose a threat to me, we'd have been able to feel its power all the way from Earth, alright? Gohan frowned. Remember why we're out here. We came to see what the situation was like, right? Fixing that they've gone wrong? We've done that. We took out 2 of the worst despots, and the rest are running scared. Go team. What's your point? My point is that the other reason we set out was to explore. To boldly go. You know, discover valuable secrets. And you think we're just going to find that on some random planet? Like finding Dragon Balls on Namek? Or instant transmission on Yardrat? There's no arguing with you, is there? Nope. We're going. The planet, a deep shade of blue at this distance, somewhat darker than Earth or Namek, floated almost lazily into view on the monitor as they approached. So, what are we expecting? Videl asked. Ghosts? Kuriza ventured hopefully. Well, there's probably some kind of life form, Zarbon agreed. To be seen as ghosts, they must be pretty strange. Gohan grinned. I'm counting on it. Take us down. The atmosphere was, as promised, breathable, though the high oxygen levels did give a slight heady taste to the air. The ground was smooth and worn down. Gale force winds blew almost constantly. Kuriza pulled his cloak closer around him, shivering at the cold. Hey, aren't you supposed to be able to survive in space? Gohan asked, frowning. It should be no problem for you. I guess I've just got used to Earth. Kuriza shrugged. Its temperatures are pretty mild as planets go. But still. Frost Demon. The clue is in the name. That's just a nickname, since the 3 most publicly known members of our species were Frieza, Cooler, and Code. You can see where it comes from. Videl raised one eyebrow. So, what's your species really called then? I could try telling you, but the word, like much of our native language, spoken at a frequency your ears couldn't pick up. Can we try and stay on track here? Zarbon barked. Well, we're on your mystery planet, Gohan. Are you happy? Well, I thought we'd just take a look around, see if we can sense anything. I just picked a random spot since no artificial structure showed up on the scan. He paused. Wait. I sense disturbance. Videl rolled her eyes. Look, I know it's a space voyage, but this is hardly the time for jokes. No, seriously. Did you guys... He swung his head back and forth, searching. There! Again! Some kind of weird key just appeared, then vanished. Yeah, I felt it too. The others gave nods of agreement. In the minute following, they detected 3 more of the brief energy signatures. Gohan's eyes slowly narrowed. Hold on. They're getting closer. Another. Yeah, definitely. And they're coming from over here. He leapt off to the right, taking great bouncing strides, surprising himself. Whoa. Low gravity. Anyway, he skidded to a halt, the others close behind. Right around here. This is where the last key appeared. I think we found our ghosts, guys, Zarbon muttered. Videl turned in a slow circle. Yeah, but I don't see any... There was an impact, a blur of movement as she fell to the floor. Gohan spun, but there was no one there. Videl! The remaining 3 clustered around her as she stood up. I see, Zarbon nodded. If it's some kind of predator, it makes sense. Going for the one with the lowest energy first. Videl tried not to take that remark personally. But why do you think it's a predator? Gohan asked, eyes scanning the surrounding area. Well, like you said, there aren't any artificial structures on this planet. Perhaps these ghosts are just a kind of wild animal with a naturally high power level, and a weird ability to disappear. Yeah, what's up with that? Kuriza grumbled, then blinked, almost tripping over his words. Hold on a second! What? There's a pause of several seconds, and Kuriza turned to Zarbon. How the hell are you walking around on the planet this cold in a t-shirt? What kind of question is... Another impact, and Zarbon was floored. Watch it! Gohan stepped in front of his fallen friend, and this time he saw it. Just barely. A receding shape, seeming to fade from existence. No, not fade. It didn't look like teleportation or anything of that sort. Almost like... Hey, Kuriza glanced around. Is it instant transmission? Is that what they're doing? No. Gohan shook his head. And it can't be just speed either. And the moment it struck, this time I got a glimpse. For that moment, its speed was slow enough for me to follow. No, it kind of looked like it just stepped out of view. It just went in some direction we can't see. Could it be? Can't go back to the ship, Zarbon muttered as he rubbed his head. Too far now. We've been making ourselves even bigger targets than we are. Have to think of something. Why does this stuff always happen as soon as we go somewhere? I guess we just attract trouble, Videl said, grinning bitterly. Okay, we're the only uninjured ones. Kuriza almost whispered to Gohan. You're stronger than I am. You'll go for me next. Right. Something flashed in Gohan's mind. A fraction of a second before he saw it. But that fraction of a second was an aeon in flights like these. He turned on the spot, putting himself in front of Kuriza and catching the incoming limb. Now, he truly saw the thing. Chitin, spines, staring eyes widened in surprise, mouth hanging slightly open, light brown coloring with deep red highlights. Very much physical, flesh and blood. Not a ghost. But of course, as soon as it recovered from its surprise, it stepped away, its body simply withdrawing, in some indescribable way, from the world it could see. At the same time, a second strode into existence, and something hit Gohan in the back, knocking him to his knees. Kuriza jumped away, raising his guard. Don't worry, guys. I've got this. He was quickly proven wrong by 3 of the creatures simultaneously. He managed to keep his balance, spinning away and jumping into the air. The low gravity took him and his next attacker by surprise, causing it to miss him and temporarily expose itself. Kuriza, still hanging in the air above it, charged up energy in one hand. I've got you! Wait! Zarbon warned, but it was too late. Kuriza fired, but the creature had already vanished, and the beam smacked into the ground. The explosion seemed to expand far too quickly, building into a gigantic column of flame and engulfing Kuriza, sending him tumbling to the ground, still billowing smoke. Damn it, I warned you, Zarbon muttered. The atmosphere is oxygen heavy. It's flammable. Gohan stood up, breathing heavily. Okay, they're not as fast as me. I have that. And I'm noticing a pattern. It's a fantastic technique, this disappearing attack. But I think I've got it figured out. He stood still, eyes closed, slowing his breathing. Okay, come and get me! That's it for chapter 52. I'll see you in chapter 53. The one thing the Super Saiyan did that guaranteed peace in the galaxy was quite simple. Judge, jury, and executioner he may have been, but a ruler he was not. Sentient beings have an instinctive predilection to rebel against an authority that oppresses them. But they can support a mysterious avenger or an angry god, leaving the government's hands clean of the dirty work the Super Saiyan carried out, which allowed the government to appear benevolent too. So all in all, the great achievement of the Super Saiyan was becoming a mythical figure and then remaining one. Something even Frieza never quite managed. From Fall of the Demon, Rise of the Legend, by Seal Tatzel. Gohan stood resolute, feeling the ki of the creature slip away as they retreated into whatever outside space they were using to hide in. Sure, this seems like an unwinnable situation. But, he turned to Zarbon. They have two weaknesses. Two? Sure. The first is that there's a sort of pattern to their attacks. Like, they're not fully autonomous, but it's pretty complex, so I'm going to need you to use Deep Sight to get a fix on it. In the middle of battle, Zarbon shook his head. There's no way, just try. You're not going to be the one fighting them. Try and focus and I'll stay up as long as I can. And the second weakness. His eyes narrowed as one of the creatures appeared in front of him, arm raised for a downward slash. He moved in a blur, catching its hand and twisting, breaking the wrist. Screeching, it retreated back into insustainability. When they do appear, they're not all that fast. Compared to me anyway. Don't know about you guys. Nope, they were pretty quick from here. Videl muttered, to a grunt of assent from Kuriza. Gohan ducked left, but wasn't quite fast enough to avoid taking a glancing blow. He swung at thin air as it withdrew, then immediately turned, sensing another behind him. His elbow caught it right in the front row of its eyes before it could attack, caving in its face and sending it reeling. It fell backwards, disappearing as it went. Interesting, Gohan thought. It seems they even vanished involuntarily. It does support my theory. Zarbon! Could use some support now! An attack struck him from behind, and he turned the fall into a somersault, regaining his balance and catching an incoming kick in both hands. He heaved the creature's leg up, spinning it head over heels and kicking it away. Alright! Zarbon's voice was brittle and scratchy. His eyes were glazed, and he shook slightly. I can't do it for long. Fast movement. Too much information. Overload. Okay. Gohan breathed slowly. Try and analyze their pattern. There's definitely a structure. He edged left and right, trying to keep his eyes on all his friends at once, waiting for the next attack. Without warning, it began again. Zarbon stared silently, absorbing the sensory input. Dozens of speakers was one thing, but complex movement on this level was taxing his abilities to the limit. Focus. Steady. He's right. There's a pattern. I think I see it. He blinked. Gohan! It's like a computer program. It's just a simple method of choosing the attack formation from a few set patterns, based on what you're doing. Behind you! 3 seconds! Sure enough, another alien appeared behind Gohan in approximately 3 seconds, only to be met with his already swinging fist. Left. 2. To your right. 2 seconds! Zarbon frowned as Gohan, acting on his advice, beat back the next 3 attackers. Hold on, they're switching pattern. It appears there's only about 10 in total. Gohan swung around in a full circle, waiting for his enemies. Just tell me where the next— Above you! Got it! A heavy swing took the alien down, and this time it stayed there. Gohan settled to the ground, rubbing his bruised knuckles. These things have pretty tough skin. He trailed off as the whole group phased into view simultaneously, forming a line a few feet away. You could see that nearly all of them were quite badly injured. They don't look so good. You really did a number on them, huh? You said it. Zarbon muttered. Are they surrendering or what? I don't think so. Videl was standing up now, gazing into the distance. We first sensed these guys as a key signal, sort of jumping towards us, right? Well, she pointed at a mountain range a few miles away. I'm sensing the same thing again. Over that way. Only more this time. How many more? Gohan asked. 20? 50? He paused, sensing it himself. Huh. No, a lot more than that. Wow, that is a lot of them. Guys, get ready! Silence fell, the edge closer together, all assuming combat stances. They arrived. Hundreds of the creatures. Thousands, maybe more. They crowded in a circle around the 4 explorers, filling the landscape, stretching all the way back to the horizon. No one was bothering to hide or disappear, unless there was simply even more they couldn't see. This? Kuriza turned in a full circle, gaping at the army assembled around them. This could be a lot better. Well, don't just stand there! Gohan shouted, powering up to Super Saiyan. Come and get me! Either leave us in peace or prepare for battle! Can you take this many? Videl asked, shifting uncomfortably. That would be a negative. I hope they don't realize that, though. He whispered back. If they all attack at once, we're dead. Silence fell, stretching on for moment after agonizing moment. Then, one of the creatures began to move forwards, making a beeline straight for Gohan. Giralethatolela! A lyrical voice called. The attacking creature froze in place. A rustling noise came from the distance. The ranks of the horde were parting like waves before some mythical prophet. A humanoid figure rapidly approached, growing larger in their vision as they approached. Their energy was fairly small, but there was something about them. A foreboding feeling, a sense of hidden danger. Not quite ki power, just a vaguely menacing aura. She stood taller than any of them. It was basically similar to a human, quite unlike the monstrous creatures that surrounded her. Despite her height, she was thin and wife-like, but moved with a confidence that seemed at odds with this frail appearance. She was dressed like some ancient priestess, adorned with finery, and her face carried a faintly bored expression. As they would later find out, this was the general appearance of her race, and even when joyous, angered, or depressed, their expressions never ventured from bored into anything stronger than vaguely interested. What'd she say? Videl murmured. It means stand down. The woman replied, suddenly in front of them, having briefly vanished. We developed a language specifically for giving orders to the drones. It avoids unnecessary confusion. I see, Gohan noted. She can disappear too. Drones? Do you control them? Why did they attack us? She ignored his questions, regarding him with inscrutable eyes. Perhaps you are sufficient, Golden Warrior. Golden? Me? Gohan blinked. I'm sufficient? For what? I'll explain in Citadel. Come. She turned away, gesturing to them. I'll remember you are flat thinkers. I'll try to remain visible to you. Flat thinkers? Shrugging, Gohan powered down and followed. We're going. Zarbon arched an eyebrow skeptically. Well, if you want to stand around here and test if ignorance is bliss, be my guest, but I wouldn't put your chances with these drones too high once she's gone, Gohan replied. Zarbon gulped. You know what? Actually, this Citadel sounds great. Half a galaxy away. The darkened chamber stirred for the first time in decades. Machines hummed to life, mechanisms untouched by the years whirring into motion. Report. Galactic News Observation number 1523205. Keyword identified. Saiyan. Computation. Cold Dynasty currently non-existent. Query. Super Saiyan? In the darkness, a pair of eyes slowly opened. Something red gleamed in the shadows. Saiyans, a husky voice breathed. It is time. Part of the strangeness of Citadel was the way once you entered one part of it, all memories of the rest became hazy and vague. You could never quite picture more than one place at a time. The one thing that did pervade all attempts at recall was a sense of sanctuary, that you were in some untouchable place outside of normal existence. Currently, they sat in a small, sparsely decorated room in simple wooden chairs. A pair of the monstrous drones guarded the door. Tensha, for that was her name, stood facing them, leaning on some surface they could not quite see. It was to do with the same mysterious ability that enabled both drones and speakers, as she identified herself, to vanish, and to move invisibly and intangibly. She explained it thus. You are able to travel from your world to ours. Therefore, I assume your scientists have at least considered the possibility of more dimensions than the 3 commonly perceived, correct? Before counting time, anyway. She paused. What we do is simply move through a 5th dimension, a direction not normally comprehensible to beings of this universe, let alone accessible. Hence, when I call you flat thinkers, it is only in the way you would refer to a 2-dimensional being, say a living drawing, flat. It has less dimensions than you. You can move in a way it cannot. The object that supports my weight at this moment is too far in the 5th dimension for you to see. I am resting on its edge. I see, Gohan said, rubbing his temples. But flat thinkers... Zarbon nodded. Indeed. Note emphasis on thought. This implies that it's not a genetic ability, Gohan finished. You've learned to do this. Tensha appeared genuinely taken aback by their quick deduction. I see that you have quite the analytical mind, both of you. It is true that our ability, shifting as we call it, is not genetic. However, our brains are well adapted for higher thought functions, such as picturing 5 dimensions in ways comprehensible to beings normally confined to our 4. I highly doubt other races are capable of duplicating such a feat. Well, that's nice, Videl said wearily. Real nice. What I'd like to know is why your guards shoot first and ask questions later. Forgive us, the Alfheim native pleaded. It is just, only one other group of off-worlders has ever landed on our planet before. We sent a diplomatic envoy to meet them. We did not expect them to respond with such hostility, and many speakers were lost before sufficient drones could be summoned to overpower them. Hence the transmission, Kryza nodded. Ghosts. So, these drones, what are they? We created them. They're not sentient, exactly. Their intelligence is around that of a plant. They're biological machines, designed to carry out physical tasks our own physiology would not permit us to perform easily. Combat is only one of these. There was a long pause, and she felt the need to fill the silence. I suppose I should explain why I invited you to our capital. General assent. Very well. Curiosity, mainly. I was going to let them kill you, hoping to avoid another slaughter of our people. But then you only threatened to fight if you were not left in peace. I was hopeful you would not be like the others. There are good and bad examples of every race, Zarbon said diplomatically. And... Kryza cocked his head to one side. Could the other 7 people listening in please stand where I can see them? Don't try this spying crap on us. How did you... I've been watching your eye movements. You keep glancing at points around the room for confirmation. Then you continue a line of conversation based on some cue they give you. Tensha sighed. Brothers, sisters, the time for secrecy, it seems, is at an end. 7 more of her kin duly materialized. Please understand, the last visitor started a massacre. Gohan waved a hand, smiling. Well within your rights to be cautious. Don't worry about it. Now, I guess you probably want to know why we're here. Correct. An older male speaker replied. Named Darye, as they later learned, he spoke abruptly and always seemed rushed, whatever he was doing. Right now, he pushed a pair of elaborately rimmed glasses up his nose, hopping from one foot to the other as he waited for a reply. Simply put, we're on an exploration mission, Gohan said. Our planet has had limited contact with the wider galaxy, so we set out with multiple goals. Determine the galactic political situation, fight injustice, I suppose, though that was kind of an accident, and bring back the wisdom of the stars. If that isn't too poetic a way of putting it. Not at all. He trailed off, mentally composing his reply, sniffed, and continued. Well, I suppose it's the least we can do to offer our hospitality. I'm sure there's much we can learn from each other. That isn't your choice to make, Tensha pointed out. The council, Darye snorted derisively. Bah! By the time the council have held their committees, filed their paperwork, and debated their minutiae, our visitors will have been and gone. Our love of bureaucracy has made the council, in short-term matters, completely ineffectual. Now, if you don't mind, I'm rather pressed for time. Good day. He strode off, vanishing into the 5th dimension before he reached the doorway. Tensha almost smiled. Don't mind him. He has many virtues, but patience is not one of them. He is right, though. If the council wanted you to leave, it would take several months to make the decision official. But I'll put in a good word for you anyway. Hey, Kryza whispered to Gohan. Can I say we come in peace? Or do you want to do it? Gohan rolled his eyes. They already know we come in peace, idiot. You don't need to. Oh, how about take me to your leader? Didn't I tell you to stop watching so much TV? Peaceful days followed. Citadel was like a waking dream. The architecture sloped in and out of perception, all twisting corridors and stairways that defied logic. Speakers and the occasional drone faded into view and then disappeared. White, blue, and gold formed the dominant color scheme, giving an ethereal appearance to the whole place. Both the natives and the travelers learned much. For their part, Gohan and company told of the wider galaxy, something Alfheim's inhabitants had never known much of, and of their own personal history, the trials and battles they'd faced in recent years. They became minor celebrities. In fact, once tales of their initial battle against the advanced guard of drones spread, becoming exaggerated as such things are, the nickname Golden Warrior was especially popular. In return, the speakers answered all questions about their species, their society, and their planet as best they could. Gohan noted several subtle parallels with the state of affairs there was with those on Nameia, and, indeed, on Earth. These went into a new chapter in his ongoing book, on the tendency of any society, on any world, to fall into certain patterns. Of particular interest was the shifting ability. Gohan was determined to understand it, at least intellectually if you physically lacked the ability to observe the fifth dimension naturally. Currently, he was staring intently at a hologram projected between himself and Tensha, who sat opposite him in a long, open-air room. The hologram projected what appeared to be a cube, with another, smaller cube inside it. "Consider the tesseract," she instructed. "It is to the cube, as the cube is to the square." Gohan nodded. "So what I'm seeing isn't actually the whole shape. It's a 3D cross-section." "Correct. When I use the part of my brain that lets us see this higher dimension, I can observe the entire shape." "You've studied the equations?" "Yes. On a mathematical level, at least. I'm starting to grasp the concept. It's just difficult to find a way to relate to the visual, spatial areas of my brain." She paused, studying him. "I must say, you've taken to some rather advanced mathematics extremely quickly. And only a child. I've had one hell of a teacher, trust me." His mind briefly drifted off to countless hours of advanced studies, his mother's way of expressing her determination that he wouldn't follow his father's uneducated path. He blinked, refocusing on the tesseract. "Okay, so how do I try and understand this thing? It isn't impossible. Nothing's impossible." His eyes narrowed. "The world that I can see, these 3 dimensions, it's flat. Picture it as a flat plane, like a piece of paper. This thing is solid. It's more real than I am. Watch as I move it through the 5th dimension," Tensha said, before tapping a button on the projector. The image flickered, then began to move. The inner cube moved outwards, expanding and folding around the shrinking outer cube, until they completely changed places. "You see? And now, it moves through my paper universe. Now I'm seeing a completely different part of it. Right. And come to think of it, she's part of this higher dimension too, right? I wonder if her ki..." He focused on her energy, trying to let his ki sense do what his eyes could not. Dot, line, square, cube, tesseract. Move up. Greater depth. He gasped. "What's this energy?" Her eyes widened. "Don't tell me you can sense my true self." Gohan nodded. "It's like seeing the real world after living among cardboard cutouts for my whole life." "Wow. That's impossible! Your brain just isn't wired to... He grinned. "Well, see ya. This is pretty tiring, actually. I'm gonna go make sure Kariza doesn't eat you out of the house and home, okay?" He stood up and wandered off, leaving Tensha in a daze. "I don't believe it. He combined his factual knowledge and his warrior's instincts to detect something anyone would have said was literally beyond him. Just who and what is this child?" 2 months later. Zarbon ducked away as Videl pressed the attack. He jumped over a low kick, striking back but slowing down so she could see him moving and block. "You're still holding back!" she accused. "Of course," he said calmly. "You're relatively new to truly advanced martial arts, whereas I've been a soldier of Frieza most of my life, and more recently a spiritually trained fighter. It wouldn't be fair to go all out. Don't worry, if I lower my power level like this, you'll still give me a good workout." She spun, trying an elbow strike but missing again. "One day, I will overtake you! All of you!" Gohan too? His father? "Come on, that doesn't count!" She swung at him again, and he raised an arm to defend. But without warning, Gohan appeared between them, catching both hands. He didn't materialize completely from invisibility, like the speakers and drones, and nor did he appear in a blur of motion, like someone using instant transmission or simply moving very fast. It seemed more like he assembled. Dozens of tiny pieces blinking into existence, the gaps rapidly filling to form a solid image of the young warrior. They stood there for a second in stunned silence, then lowered their fists. "Gohan?" Videl shrugged. "What was... just... what?" "My sentiments, precisely." Zarbon arched an eyebrow. Gohan laughed out loud. "Ha-ha! It worked! Awesome! Well, technically it's not quite shifting like the natives here do it. I can't actually perceive the 5th dimension. But in effect, it's the same thing. I guess I sort of opened up a passage through the dimension for a fraction of a second and jumped through. Like this! He disassembled, then reappeared on the other side of the room. No key signature to trace, see? Right, Zarbon nodded. Pretty cool. I'm guessing you don't have to lock onto an energy signature to use it, right? So it's better than instant transmission? Not exactly. It's true that I don't need to lock on like that, but I can only jump to somewhere I can see, so its range is kinda limited. He sat down, pulling a notepad from his back pocket. But it's not the most important thing I've learned here anyway. More of a party trick, really. The important thing is what I can conclude about sentient beings in general, having encountered not just wider galactic culture, but two isolated ones as well, here and on Earth. Yet the same social patterns emerge. It's fascinating. So, how long are you planning to stay here? Not too much longer. I reckon we'll only need to visit 1 or 2 more planets, and only for a day or 2 each, just to confirm some stuff I noted on Namiya, if it's true of all, or at least most, worlds in the former Empire. In terms of new techniques, I wouldn't have much hope for learning too many. I mean, shifting isn't nearly as useful as instant transmission. I think learning anything revolutionary is pretty rare, honestly. While many aliens have a pretty high power level, that's just genetics. If anything, Earth has some of the most spiritually aware martial artists in the universe, and some of the most diverse techniques. Vidal smiled. No place like home, eh? It's an age-old problem. We've often heard that politicians are the worst sorts of people to put in charge of a nation. Anyone who wants that kind of power shouldn't be allowed to have it. But it's interesting to note that it seems to be a universal phenomenon, as I've discovered in my travels. Power attracts the corrupt, whatever species they may be. From Groundbreaking Science by Sun Gohan. Activating Protocol Alpha. Subject: Saiyans. Action: Terminate. Hachiyak deployed. That is it for chapters 51, 52, and 53. The first part of the Countdown Saga is over. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all... I might see you all next week before Saturday for the next few chapters. Christmas break is coming up and I'm not sure what's going to be going on. So expect an update in the coming days about what will be happening with Break Through the Limit. Alright. That'll be all. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends. Follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with the show. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe. Ginger Powers signing off.